Hi everybody and Happy New Year. You have found the video, the extended interview, the full interview that I conducted with TV director Charles Bastien. Now for me, I really knew Charles from his work on the cancelled animated 90s Canadian Doctor Who series. That's right, when Doctor Who was cancelled by the BBC in the late 1980s, it was left up to a Canadian animation studio to try and revive the show for a whole new audience. Now, without spoiling anything, that didn't get off the ground, but Charles played a big role in the production side of that, and it was really interesting to talk to him about the design of the characters and even a few unknown story details that would have been seen within the series. Charles is also a director on the hugely successful television show Paw Patrol. He's also worked on other kids shows such as Mike the Knight, and some of you might even know his work from some Star Wars spin-off stuff, Droids and Ewoks. Okay, so my first question is, how much guidance were you given when it came to the design of these characters? Because there must be some guidance, I imagine, from the studio, but then they hire you for certain reason because they must like your work.
Well, I was at Nelvana for quite a while before this started. I'd worked on the Lucasfilm Ewoks and Droids projects and other shows. And so the management just basically asked me to do development work for the show.
Yeah.
And at first there was not much guidance, just basically do whatever you want. And then some executives would pipe in later with like, I like this one, let's do this, mix this with this, that kind of direction, right?
Yeah.
Until it got to I guess some kind of I guess it must have gotten to some kind of approval so that we could move ahead at one point or another.
Yeah. Was
Mm.
you was you familiar with the show beforehand? Because I imagine at this point it hadn't really made its mark overseas. It was still quite very much a British show.
Oh no, it's been here for a long time.
Oh, great.
The CBC in Canada ran it, and the
Yeah.
CBC actually ran it for quite a while. And when the BBC started erasing tapes,
Yeah.
they had to come back to us because we had the stuff that they had lost.
Oh,
So the
wow.
CBC actually had, and the CBC had it in color, and a lot of stuff that Britain only had in black and white. So no, it'd been on for quite a while. I'd watched a lot of the John Pertwee, and then the oh, wow, mental block. Tom Baker. Yeah, I should have known that because my wife made me a scarf that I should have worn.
Oh, no
I've
way.
got like
So
a 12. Well, I've got a 12-foot long scarf my wife made for me. Yeah,
So would you say you're a fan of the show then?
yeah, yeah. I am a fan of the show, but nowadays it's just finding the time to
Yeah.
do it. Like I watched through several of the newer Doctors, but not the latest. I've got. I haven't seen from Capaldi on, but I was
Yeah.
watching prior to that. So uh, yeah, I've always been a fan of the show. So it was kind of a great thing to work on at the time, being 30 years younger and 30 years geekier than I am now. So
You mentioned Tom Baker there, and I was looking at some of your artwork, and there are two distinctive different types of doctors that you design. There's a more traditional scientific one, and sort of what we would sort of know to become a more David Tennant sort of younger, more dramatic style, sort of with a long brown coat as well. I noticed. How come there was two different sort of quite different looks there?
well, it was just exploring. There was a bit of the Baker stuff in there. I had one guy with a hat and a scarf, and then the other ones were just going off on tangents. And one was almost a Peter O'Toole type of
Mm,
looking character with the flat cap, and then others was a mishmash of things that were producers would say, "Give me this with this and add this and put it with this," right? And then it became a hybrid thing, right?
yeah,
I liked my Peter O'Toole one with the big watch. He was my favorite one. So
yeah. Yeah, because
yeah,
I
but
was
yeah.
I looked online and there was a lot of comparisons to actors like Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future and Jeff Goldblum as well. Did those types of actors play an influence in your work, or is that just a total coincidence?
That's just people online. Like I think Peter O'Toole was in there for sure. Uh, I would have gone. There might have been a bit of Pierce Brosnan in there in some of them. Uh, But the other things were later. If you think about it, it was 30 years ago, so they weren't an influence at the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of read online that the studio seemed quite keen to get the show going. It seemed like once the BBC were keen on it, the ball really started rolling on it quite quickly. What was that process like? Was it? I imagine it was quite exciting. You say, like, as a fan of the show, 30 years younger, 30 years geekier, to be asked to be involved in this. I imagine it was very exciting.
Yes, it was great, and it was going. Like we were into it several scripts in, and we were several storyboards in. So the production had actually started,
Wow.
and then it just vanished on us. So yeah, it was disappointing,
Can
but
you
to
remember
say
any
the
of the
least. But
sort of storylines then?
the one I do remember is it had to do with some kind of mining base on some planet somewhere. And there was these giant mining machines, and they were mining for something, but it was all a cover operation by the Daleks. They were breeding a whole new batch of Daleks, different versions of them, like tank style Daleks and other Daleks. They were going to make a big comeback. It was all being hidden under this mining operation.
That does sound.
That's about all I can remember about that.
It does sound interesting because I was looking at some of the artwork and there's definitely redesigns in there. The only thing really that seems to have stayed pretty much the same was the TARDIS. Was there any talk of that sort of changing into anything else? Because I know, like, when Russell T Davies brought the series back, they were like, "Will kids even know what a what a police box is?"
I was trying to give it like an organic feel that the TARDIS was still the TARDIS, so it'd be recognizable, and the control panel in the middle would be recognizable. But whatever rose out of the center would have a more organic feel to it, like it was some kind of biomechanical, possibly partially alive thing. That was, and I was trying to keep it really white and like blown out, like we were in the last scenes of 2001 or something, that kind of feel. That was how I ended, and it had the round things on the wall. So
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so the big question then, I guess, is why did we never see this? Because from talking to you, it almost got made. We got like a few episodes into production. There were storyboards, there was scripts, the artwork looks incredible. But what happened? Why did it just suddenly disappear?
It was very straight. We were going along really well, and then we had a BBC executive come over to visit us, and there was a person with that executive. And what that person was from an animation studio in England. And what I didn't realize was going on until we didn't find out later is that this person was saying into the BBC executive's ear when we were listening is, "Oh, we could do it in Britain, and we could do it better."
Oh wow, okay.
Over and over until they said, "Okay, we'll stop it and we'll go with you." They couldn't do it, and so they killed it. Basically, whoever this industrial espionage idiot was killed the show because it would have been made if it wasn't for this silliness, right? So
Yeah. I
there
mean,
were some weird things too at the time. BBC didn't want to pay for anything. They wanted basically us to make the show and bankroll the whole thing,
yeah.
right? And it was like they wanted us to actually even pay to have it aired,
Oh.
which was really weird. Like, why would a company that makes a show pay the BBC to put it on the air,
Yeah.
especially when they owned it, owned the
Yeah.
property? There was a lot of these are things I always heard, like, at least secondhand, because I was just an artist on it at the time, right? So there was a lot of strange things. Whether these things are 100% true or not, I couldn't tell you. I know the part about the animation studio person who came there telling her, we can do this for cheaper or better in Britain. That part I know because I saw it with my own eyes. But
Yeah.
anything else is just secondhand info, right? So
It does seem strange because it just seemed like, especially at the time in like the mid 90s, that would have been something that a lot of people I think really would have enjoyed, and it seemed like a sensible way to bring the show back.
mm-hmm.
To sort of reinvent it. I suppose when it did come back, or when they tried to reboot with Paul McGann, they went for an overseas style. They took it to America, and it didn't sort of worked a little bit, but it seems like that was something they were
that was
quite.
a strange one, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that was something they were quite interested in. Is shipping it away and getting fresh eyes on it almost.
I think all of it, a lot of it was financial too, is to get somebody else to pay for it, basically, right? So,
Does
but
stuff like that happen a lot in that side of the industry? Then animation companies competing with each other
uh,
just to see who
it,
can do it
it
the cheapest.
I think that's more of a thing from that time period than now.
Yeah,
Nowadays, a lot more people are willing to pay for new because everyone wants content.
yeah,
So you see things like the streaming companies as opposed to the traditional networks throwing all kinds of money out there to have new content because who has the best and most new content wins, right?
yeah.
So,
Um,
but
Sorry, go on.
hmm? No, okay. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So basically, it is just. I was just so interested because I've seen the concept art floating around online. It's been really nice to talk to you. Is there anything else you remember from that time that you don't think a lot of people know about, or some a little fun thing, a little exclusive I could take?
Oh my goodness, it's been so long. Like we did, like I said, we got like three, I think around three scripts into it. We
Yeah.
had started boarding it for sure. And I started doing the designs for the first episode. Um, that's about all I can remember. Like I said, it is over 30 years ago now, so
I won't
it's
push
been
you
quite a
too much.
while.
It was before I was
No,
born, if that makes you feel any worse about the whole thing.
like I still work with the fellow who is the director of the show. His
Okay.
name's Ray Jaffelis, and someone got in touch with him a little while ago to ask him about the series. He couldn't remember a thing, so because it's been so long, and we didn't do that much before it got pulled out from under our feet, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just but it's interesting. Like every few years, this comes back. It's like
Yeah.
cicadas, right? It comes out, and then people get in touch with me and like, oh, what about the Doctor Who stuff? It's like, wow, it's getting a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Like any of the artwork that I may have is filed away and packed away somewhere in the studio. I'd have to spend hours to find it. Right? It's
Yeah.
been so long.
Talking about like I've just remembered the drawing of the master with his robot arm and a parrot. And there's a lot of talk. I know I mentioned a minute ago with Jeff Goldblum and stuff like that, but a lot of people claim that this guy looks a lot like Sean Connery. Was really again
Oh,
any truth from
there's a bit. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sean Connery was always in my head for that. Yeah,
that's cool. Was there any
but
talk of these actors who maybe look slightly like the characters voicing the characters? Sorry, did you ever get that far into it?
yeah, we never got as far as the casting. No, so I don't know if they could have, or they would have wanted to pay for it or not. Right? So especially there's so many rules about if you ever deal with actors unions
Yeah.
and tax credits and stuff. It's really complicated. So
Yeah.
I might have been able to do it back then. Probably couldn't do it now.
No, yeah.
So,
I remember reading about Samuel L. Jackson, who just one day opened a Marvel comic and saw that they had drawn Nick Fury to look exactly like him, and then that eventually led to
oh yeah.
him starring in the role in the movies. So I wonder if Sean Connery perhaps would have seen those sketches and those drawings and that artwork, you might have gone, oh, maybe we'll see about this.
No, it'd be more like, what does it pay?
Yeah.
And it'd be like, okay, we'll do that. And well, if you ever seen any of the Alex Ross books, like Marvels, that he's very realistic comic book. He does more paintings than drawings, but when in the book he did called Marvels, Professor X was Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Way before he was in the movies.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the same kind of deal, right? Where he saw it and said, okay, I'll do that. Looks good.
Yeah. So more about yourself then. What came after this? So Doctor Who, you were a fan. It suddenly got pulled away from you. What did you go on to work on next? Because did you say that the Star Wars stuff came before this?
Oh, it was before that. Yeah, I was a production designer for 8 years, working on various shows. I even worked on Rupert the Bear.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, I went on to directing and storyboarding and stuff. And so I worked on things like the Magic School Bus and other shows. A lot of them. Mike the Knight, I don't know if you've heard of that one. That was for Britain. We made that for BBC. Currently, I direct Paw Patrol,
Yes.
which is all over the planet.
Yeah, even
So
I know what it is.
yeah.
I'm way out of that target audience, but I know what it is.
Well, it's nice to know that it's a show that everyone's heard of. So it's like, oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But I've been on that for 6 seasons now,
Wow.
and it keeps going. So I'll be directing that for a little while longer, I think,
Yeah.
and that'll hopefully get me to the end of my career. But because I'm almost 60 now, so I've been in the business for quite a while, for like 38 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, cartoons. It's hell.
I
Yeah.
hope you don't mind me asking. I'm a film student at university, and I would love to. Like, the goal is to direct, but I've only ever really done live action stuff, or documentary work. How different is it from doing that to then doing cartoons, like animation? Because it's not so much camera work as knowing the lenses, knowing the cameras. How do you have any advice or anything that you think you can say about that?
Well, I'll say that the lenses and the cameras in 3D animation
Yeah.
are the same.
Okay.
So, but I have a whole crew, right? I have, but working in animation is different. There's no going out and shooting and editing. I have to make the thing down to the frame from day one. There's no going back to redo things as much, right?
Yeah.
So we have a process where we move in television animation, which is basically a snowball going downhill. You can't stop it. It has to go from here and finish, right? So we start with the script and move on to the storyboard and go through every different stage of the process, from previous layout. There's assets. Everything that's on screen has to be built. There's previous to layout. All the scenes, every scene has to be laid out. Every scene has to be animated, blocked out, animated. Then we go through different processes of compositing and rendering and all these different stages all the way to the end.
Yeah.
So in some ways, animation is really way more labor intensive, because, like I said, we make the film down to the frame, and everything you see on screen has to be created by somebody.
Yeah.
So it's more laborious process, but the language is the same. There's 2D animation versus 3D, where there are different constraints. There are, depending on program, and also depending on 2D is a different thing than 3D, right? 3D is closer to live action, because it's like you have to build your sets, all that kind of thing, and you have cameras that you move.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's more versatile, because my camera can fly anywhere with whatever's happening.
Yeah.
So, which is more like you'd see in like an action adventure show, where you can fly with Spider-Man through the buildings and everything, as opposed to lockdown or rail camera that's on a tripod or a track somewhere. Yeah. So it's a different thing. Like, it's a different language. There are things, and animation is an artificial image that someone had to construct, and so someone has to look at it and interpret it and know what you're looking at. With a live action shot, that's something our eyes can interpret automatically.
Yeah.
The animation, your brain has to go through another step to figure out what I'm actually looking at, right? So there's some cutting that has to be done in a certain way in animation that in live action you don't have to care about, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, if cutting in action has to always work with screen direction or whatever action you're following, characters, etc., as opposed to live action is like, we know exactly who we're looking at, no matter where we cut, right? In a lot of ways, you can do it really wrong, but it's a lot more forgiving, because when we cut to this guy again, we still know it's that guy.
Yeah.
Right. But if I have a guy run out of screen right, he can't come in from screen right to the next shot, right? I have to have him follow through, right? Or if someone throws a ball, it can't cut and have it going the other way. But in live action, you sort of can.
Yeah.
But in animation, if I want to get from here to here, I have to do an intermediate step of going here. I have to go neutral, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of little things that are different, but it's in 3D is a lot more similar because 2D is a lot of doing this, especially with today's digital medium. Go here to here. 3D I can still do this,
Yeah.
and then come back from here, right? And I can have something here and here, right?
Yeah.
And I can pull focus, and I can do all the real fun things. I can do is ollie shot, something straight out of Hitchcock. I can do all that fun stuff in 3D.
Yeah.
So it's, in some ways, I like it now because 2D got more limiting with today's technology because people use things, even more advanced 2D programs, almost like Flash. It's just cutouts.
Yeah.
But you do this and then pop like this. 3D, I can still do this, right?
Yeah.
So,
have you ever done any live action directed live action stuff? How did you find that sort of
only
adapting?
small. Only I've done I did a video once for Disney for there was like a combination animation live action. I've done like reference shoots and stuff, but I did one music video shoot where I had to fly down to LA and do all that, and so I had to deal with ad agencies, which is terrible.
It seems the world of
So
cartoons is a much better place.
Yeah, there's commercials. Commercial land is just, oh my God. Ad agencies are just like, they bring you the worst drawing that looks like their nephew drew it and said, this is what we want. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's one of those situations where I have to run behind the set and draw like a whole bunch of panels, Xerox them off and hand them out to the whole staff. Say, okay, now we're ready to go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different thing. If you want to direct an animation, you have to go to a school for animation.
Yeah.
Then you have to. It's almost like, I would say it's like working for McDonald's.
Yeah.
If you want to own a McDonald's franchise, they send you to a place called Hamburger U.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to own a franchise until you know how to make every dish that's on the menu.
Oh, okay.
And that's the way I look at it. If you're in animation, you have to understand every step of the process, and you should work in several of those before you feel you can direct something.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, if they take someone who hasn't done that and throw them into the position, they're lost, right?
Yeah.
Because it's this huge thing that you have to get from here to here, and you have to be able to have an overview of all this.
Yeah.
In your head, and keep the big picture in your mind as the thing is rolling from here to here.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on this here, because then it all backs up, right?
Yeah.
So, and in television, unlike a feature, you do not have unlimited time and money. And so you have to pick your battles. Like, okay, these guys can be talking heads setting up something here. We don't spend a lot of time and effort on that. Then we get to the big, beautiful money shots that are like important. We spend all our time on that, right? And then everyone talks about the end going, oh, that was great. We would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for old man, whatever. And so you've got to say, okay, this is what I want, Yeah. This is the thing I'm going to make. Or with me, it's like, I think, okay, could be really cool. So I'm going to make this thing really cool. And then at least I'll have that in my episode, right?
Yeah.
So I still go by the theory of what I would have wanted to see on TV when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I do, yeah.
Oh, awesome. One thing I know we're going way off topic from what we originally planned to talk about. But one thing I've noticed is when we get imports of cartoons from Canada and America and the UK, there is often times where they will just fade to black and then fade straight back in. Obviously, where there seems to be more advertising or breaks, more adverts overseas. How does that play into the storytelling? Because over here, we don't really have that problem. If you have a half-hour TV show, you get one advert bang in the middle of the 15 minutes.
It all depends on the show. Like on On Paw Patrol, usually I just have one break.
Yeah.
Right. No, two breaks per ep because there's two 11-minute eps and a 22. And so there is an one break per each.
Yeah.
Like the client, I think the client we send the show to air on has a detector so that as soon as it hits a black, it cuts to commercial.
Okay.
So it's basically an automatic thing for them, and we have to deliver it in the format that they dictate.
Yeah.
So that's what they get. Once they send it overseas, I don't know what they do with it, right?
Yeah.
What's really funny though is when we send it to England, they dub the characters over with uh, kids with British accents.
Yeah.
So it's like it's being dubbed from English into English, which is really weird. Yeah,
That
and
is
when I was
strange.
working on, when I worked on Mike the Knight, it was a co-pro between Hit Entertainment,
Yeah.
which is in England, and us, and we would make the whole show, and then but we would animate it to the British actors' voices.
Yeah.
Then we'd have to go to a post-production like audio place and dub it over in Canadian English. It's like, what are we doing? We're dubbing it from English to English. It's like it's not like that no one would understand what's being said, right?
Yeah.
And so that's weird.
That is bizarre because
So
we don't really have that. We get a lot of import cartoons and kids, especially kids shows from America over here. And I'm just racking my brain back when I was a kid, and a lot of them they kept the American accents. I look at stuff like Arthur.
mhm.
That was an aardvark,
Which
and
is
we did question the fact he
that's
was
Canadian,
Canadian.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and the thing is like even with Paw Patrol, it's like why bother? And when we did Mike the Knight and we dubbed it into Canadian English, I'm like, why? Like it's from it's he's a knight who must obviously be from England.
yeah,
And then later in later series we had a bad guy who was a bad English boy knight, and
yeah.
he was British, but we left him British. We didn't change his voice, so I guess it's okay to be evil and British, but the good guys have to be Canadian. I have no idea what that means,
True,
but
true.
I don't make these decisions. So.
No.
Yeah.
I'm slightly conscious that I've taken up quite a lot of your time. I really do appreciate you talking to me so soon as well. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you've got coming up that you want to talk about? Anything exciting that's on the way?
Well, I'm continuing on Paw Patrol right now. We're getting close to the end of season 8, and we're in production on season 9. So Paw Patrol goes on for quite a while. So I've been lucky because a lot of people have to move around from studio to studio to studio, and I've managed to be on shows that last a long time. So,
Yeah, that's one thing I
yeah.
seem to have learned from talking to various people now is, especially stuff that gets cancelled. One of the reasons it seems to get cancelled is whoever was championing it at a certain studio leaves that studio and goes to another one, and whoever gets their job doesn't want to make that show anymore.
Mhm. Well, a lot of times they don't understand they're not making something no one wants to see
Yeah,
until after it's too late, and then it doesn't get renewed, right? So
yeah,
yeah, it's just a lot of luck involved.
yeah,
If the premise is something everyone likes, then it continues, right? But
yeah,
if you're trying to, a lot of times when you're trying to create it by saying, well, this show had this and this and this and this, so if we make a show with these things in it, it must be a hit. And they're like, not always, no.
yeah.
But, yeah, because if focus groups worked, every show would be a hit. They don't.
No. And there you have it. That was my interview with Charles. What an amazing guy. Charles, if you're still listening, if you're here, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and thank you for answering my personal questions on the industry. It was really interesting to get a one-on-one conversation going with yourself about something that I'm really passionate about, and I cannot thank you enough for your time. If this is your first time listening to us, thank you so much. We've recently crossed 1,000 subscribers, and obviously the next milestone is 2,000. So if you've enjoyed this, we have other interviews with other people involved in Doctor Who. So do subscribe, do all the like and commenting stuff as well. All our socials, let us know what you thought, because we absolutely love hearing from you guys. If you've got any suggestions for people you might think we want to talk to, anything interesting, leave them in the comments. Let's start talking. Thanks very much, guys, and we'll see you again soon.